And we are live. Hey, and joining the most honest Jew in media tonight, in absence of our dear elderly gay host William, we have two excellent guests tonight to discuss a topic near and dear to our home state. We have Paul Fenz, and we have my good friend Gabe Teixeira.
What's happening? Thanks for having us, Scott.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for filling in for this old fuck who twinged his back doing nothing.
Useless English.
Anyway, so we decided, because it's a Boston centered episode in terms of the hosts. I guess it's a perfect opportunity for us to talk about something that me and Paul were talking about a little bit ago, which is the Boston desegregation busing riots and the whole controversy surrounding it.
Yeah, it was kind of interchangeable. It goes in between busing and desegregation, depending if you want to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
It seems like if the people that think it's not racist, it's the busing. That's what they want to refer to it as. Yeah. Politicians would say forced busing would be the terminology they use.
But I see it as like basically, to me, what it boils down to. Fine, let's just get into my fucking spicy take right away, because this is what I'm the best at.
Let's
go. Basically, this was an attack on the poor working whites by the government.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really bring up. Obviously, the race thing's obvious.
Yeah,
and
it's really a distraction, though.
Even if you fell on the other side, you could obviously look at the numbers and say that, well, yeah, that doesn't make sense that they're not getting the same level of education depending on teachers or materials and books in school and stuff. But why would you take the poorest people from Roxbury and then bus them to the poorest whites in Southie?
Spite.
It's literally, that's a powder keg waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a huge class thing that no one ever talks about.
Yep. But basically, the thing that sucks too about it, even if I do want to take the woke angle a little bit, it's like the government kind of like used like black children as shock troops and like collateral damage to like basically force a reorganization of like the real estate industry, if you will.
Well, it really started all in the 50s with
the Brown versus the Board of Education.
Not even. This is with that too. We can get into that, but basically, to set the stage for this is the whole like New Boston thing, where the whole West End was demolished in order to put high-rise luxury apartments, and then the whole East Side was basically made room for Logan Airport.
Mm.
So all these poor white people were all like
SOL
basically while they gentrified and started to gentrify the city. And then basically the only place where poor white people could go was the South End. Well, mostly the Irish in the South End.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Paul?
I'm from Quincy. I actually grew up in Quincy as a consequence of this event directly. This actually like butterfly moment, one of the butterfly effect moments of my life. Like my mom was in school when this happened, living in Dorchester, and this caused my mom to move her whole family, my grandmother, to move us to Quincy in the so-called white flight.
Right.
So my family took part in that, and that's why I grew up there, just outside the city.
Yeah.
And just after all of this, it I think in like 76, about 30,000.
That's when it ended. Yeah.
30,000 kids got out of the Boston public school systems, which is like, I think it was about a third of the white students.
Yeah, I want to say that it was down to like only 10% white attendance at that point.
Now I think there's only
it's like 1%.
It's literally
8% or something.
Yeah,
it's
statistically insignificant.
No, it's basically all Boston public schools are basically for the most part are Black and Latino.
More so Latino.
Oh, and also Asian.
Yeah,
there's a decent Asian population there too.
Yeah, if you're white in the city, if you're still there, you absolutely go to a private school.
Yeah,
like it's literally.
Or
8%
you're a gay transplant from New York. That when New York got too expensive.
Yeah, No, it's literally like you said. It's single-digit % white dudes. They're all wiggers, and the rest is
Yep.
Hispanic, Black, and Asian.
Yeah,
Other than
and
that,
then a
you have
lot
to
of
go to some
times
kind
too, maybe you had this in your schooling, because you went to school about around the same time me and Gabe did, actually. So you probably had this exact experience, which is wigger from Boston whose parents made enough money to move to the burbs, and then just was like basically like, yo, it's because I'm a Boston guy, you know.
Yep, that's his whole personality in school.
Yeah,
we'd have kids from like Neponset because it's like right next to
Yeah.
Quincy. Like we're right there, the bridge.
I'm gonna take a defensive stance because every time you travel, you just say you're from Boston because you don't want to talk to people.
That's a completely different fucking
That's completely different.
I usually tell people south of Boston, but then that just leads to more questions.
Yeah, you just say you're from Boston for sure when you travel, especially if you live as close as we all do, being in like the greater Boston area.
Yeah.
And working in the city. I've lived in the city for years too. I lived in West Roxbury for a while.
So I wouldn't call myself a Bostonian though.
We're
South Shore suburb
down there. Yeah, true.
Yeah, my father immigrated here from the Azores in 1963, and he moved straight to Stoughton, where me and Scott we both grew up. Scott, you grew up here for the most part, right?
I'm from Brockton, I would say, probably more accurately.
Which is another trash town.
Yes, another fucking, speaking of white flight too, Brockton is a perfect example of that exact thing. Yeah.
So my father was an immigrant here in the 60s. He got all types of picked on and racism and stuff like that. Like he would go to school, he'd be in the restroom at school, and he'd get pissed on. Like while he was taking a leak at the urinal, they would piss on him, the kid. So like,
well, there were no black people here then, so he was the black guy.
He had one black friend.
Oh, okay. Very progressive
at Stoughton High. And basically my dad would fight every day he went to school. So this is not a uncommon thing, even in the burbs, which I guess from the reading and stuff that I looked at, I guess the busing seemed to be more effective when taken to the suburbs. Like they were more welcoming.
Well, the thing that you keep seeing in the fucking story of the we'll get down to the brass tacks later, obviously, but in the whole like timeline of the whole thing is like the suburbs were largely fucking like affected because there just weren't any black people to get bused.
Yeah, that's what I saw, was that there was no need for busing because there was no integration needed. It was just white kids out in the burbs for the most part.
Which is another thing which is the people who are the ones advocating. This is what I was saying before. It's like the government inflicted on it. It's like basically like the bunch of like Washington connected liberal, like Boston, Massachusetts politicians, like literally Ted Kennedy. I'm talking about.
Kennedy is
he
Ted
was
Kennedy,
very for busing. I saw.
Yep. Very much. Yeah, of course, his kids were not affected naturally.
He went to go speak somewhere for it, and then they basically jeered him out of there and told them to send his one-legged son to bus him to Roxbury.
Yeah, that's pretty harsh.
He just lost his son lost his leg of cancer like the year before.
Oh,
yeah. Well, I'm sure the fucking hooker he killed's parents miss her too.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that?
As bad as that kid misses his leg.
Yeah. Fuck his leg.
Tell me if you guys,
rich boy leg.
If you guys kind of read the stuff the same way, anything that I was hearing and the way I pictured all the white Bostonians on the other side of the busing where they don't want the black kids busing into their neighborhoods. I just pictured them that like every Celtics game or Patriots game I've ever been to, and the drunken assholes that are like fucking, just fucking dude. They're those guys.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I fucking was watching a lot of contemporary video of the time, and the people were just perfect. Like they were just a perfect Boston stereotype of just like
complete caricature.
They're tearing us apart. They tearing each other apart.
Yeah, it was great, man.
It was a great. There's some great video, and then there's all they had interviews with like every different kind of perspective and race. Like they had interviews with black people who were like, "No, fuck this. I'd rather have my kid be in my neighborhood where I know he's not going to get the shit beaten out of him." And fuck this busing bullshit. Like, if you just make all the school better.
I don't think either side wanted it.
No,
From what I asked my mom,
absolutely not.
That was her consensus as well. The black
Yeah.
kids didn't want to go to the Southie and Charlestown and shit as much as the white kids didn't want to go to Roxbury and Mattapan.
Yeah.
Everyone was just chill, she said, and then they did that, and then it was like complete mayhem.
The only
because
black,
of that.
the only black people I saw that wanted it were literally NAACP lawyers who weren't from here at all, who came and were just doing this thing because it was basically their job.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing with, like, you know, race baiters like fucking Al Sharpton. It's like, I'm sure at one point in Al Sharpton's life, he had pure intentions of helping black people, but now it's his gig.
I mean, the place where this like really started is June 11th, 1963, with George Wallace. I think he's governor of Alabama, I want to say.
Maybe, yeah, I recall, yes.
He had an inaugural address as soon as he got elected, where he was basically like segregation forever, like over his dead body kind of thing. And then the University of Alabama was the last public university to integrate. And he literally like was there blocking the doors until either the army either the army or the national,
the last, dude.
either the army or the National Guard like had to be like, all right, guy, you need to like, you need to get out of here.
Well, okay, but that does raise a certain point, though, is that fucking for what it's worth, he was the governor of Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that means the people elected that guy.
Yep.
If you believe in democracy, which I don't necessarily do, by the way, but if you believe in democracy, that's what the people wanted, at least the majority of them. And the thing is that the fact of the matter is the National Guard gets activated by the federal government, though. So this was the feds basically coming in and being like,
Sure.
All right, rednecks, it's time. Take the blacks.
I'd say chances are the black people in Alabama probably didn't vote for this guy.
Yeah, but there's not enough of them to make a difference.
A lot of black people were for segregation as well.
I don't think they could still vote in Alabama in 1963, dude.
So basically, this led to Kennedy then giving a speech saying that not that it was legally important to desegregate, it was morally important to desegregate. And then that led to...
Is this Ted or Jack?
This is John Kennedy, still alive. Because this is 63.
Oh, I know.
God rest his soul, dude.
Maybe this was him. Maybe this was him trying to be like, guys, please don't kill me.
His last ditch effort.
Yeah, he said, maybe I'll say some shit about how great blacks are, and then they won't blow my head off.
And then this is all on the same day. This is later that night. Medgar Evans, head of NAACP, is murdered by a Ku Klux Klan member. And he isn't
fed.
He isn't actually convicted of the murder until 1997.
Southern Democrat.
Dude, it's a fed.
Damn.
So it took, 34 years in order for that guy to actually see time for that. The very next day, Ruth Badson, head of NAACP, once again, committee in Boston, though, says to the school committee that Boston's school system is segregated. And they call it, at this point, it's de facto segregation.
That's the thing. It wasn't like officially segregated. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? If that's just the way Boston be, yo.
Well,
yeah.
We touched on it a little bit. So
Boston kind of just
picked
their own neighborhood.
That's what it was, is that the Irish were in the South. The North End was Italian. So,
yeah.
And then
and East Boston back then was Italian still.
Yeah, before it was Logan.
Yeah, I just got my baptism certificate. I got baptized there back in the early 90s when it wasn't Puerto Rican. It was old St. Lazarus.
Oh, yeah.
Still good, a good Italian church. Not anymore, though. It's gone.
And then that's just how it would be. Jamaica Plain was formerly a Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah, there was a lot of fucking yids around in Boston.
Yeah.
I feel like that happens with every city, though.
Nope. It's just here in New York. It's just here in New York.
I was going to say, because New York.
Not even New York anymore, really. Maybe a
little.
Well,
they're in Brooklyn, but
anymore.
A little bit, but yeah, here is to this day. Those boundary lines are still here for the most part. Like those neighborhoods do kind of still stand as. Like,
that's what the people are comfortable with, and that's how it is. It's not like.
Also, it's okay when Jews do it. Let's face it. I mean, it just ends.
I don't want them in my neighborhoods either.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh boy. Anyway, so what's some of the other things? So anyway, another thing was, again, like I was saying before, like this was like all like top down shit. Like people in Boston, and like you said, Paul, like your mom got the gist that it wasn't just white people who felt not good about the busing situation.
Yeah.
Everybody was pretty much down on it. And the fact of the matter was, the person who put it into motion in Massachusetts are actually, well, I should mention in the 60s, in the 65, they passed like the equitable schooling thing.
Some kind of law.
But they didn't enforce it whatsoever.
The Racial Imbalance Act of 65.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
And
made it illegal to segregate.
Right. So yeah, on paper they were definitely not. But again, then they go, but the sociologists with 3 parentheses around their name all noticed that there was still there was still a matter of segregation in terms of neighborhoods. So they said, we can't let this happen.
There's no race mixing going on.
Fuck. Anyway, so that's about in the 70s at this point. And I should mention too that I got some personal anecdotes as well. I talked to my father was a freshman in high school the year that this happened, the very first year. And so but he was very lucky to be in a magnet school because it was a test-in thing, and he was studying architecture.
No, he really fell, huh?
Yeah, I know what happened. But so he didn't have to go. He wasn't bused that way. However, the way that he traveled, I don't know where his school was, but he lived in Brighton, and he had to take the bus, which was actually a chartered T bus, by the way. But he rode it through the Heath projects in Roxbury every day. And just the fact that there was a school bus full of white kids going through, they had to hit the deck every day because rocks were flying, full soda glass bottles were flying.
This is even freshman year. So what is that?
1974.
Yeah. So this is the start of all the busing.
It's the first year that it started. He was a freshman in high school.
So,
bummer.
So basically you have this, the Racially Imbalanced Act or whatever that passed. Basically, so racially imbalanced school in 1960 this is how they actually like determined it, was more than 50% of the kids are non-white. 55 in the state, and 45 of those were in Boston. The other 9 were in Springfield, and then there was 1 in Cambridge. Is exactly how it was broken.
There was one
down.
Black guy in Cambridge.
There's one
news
black guy.
To me.
No, this is a school in those districts.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they were in Boston, hence the Boston busing, etc.
Yeah.
So
what a crazy stat too. 50%. What is it supposed to be? Evenly split down the middle?
It doesn't even make sense
numerically. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense. Now, I also brought up these numbers.
That means it's got to be minority white in every school by those numbers.
Well, that's just 51, what they want.
49. Yeah.
I think if they had more than 50% was the idea. But keep this in mind, because I got these numbers too to put it in perspective. So Massachusetts, this is Massachusetts as a whole, not just Boston, was 94% white in the mid 1960s.
Yeah, sounds.
So that means
right.
they're the very vast minority in Massachusetts.
The good old days.
Right, MAGA.
I think I read somewhere prior to 1940, I think there was only 3% of the population was Black.
Okay, it makes sense.
Something like that. So, and then I'm just bringing up the numbers just so you can have a perspective, because it's like 50% of the school. That's a lot, especially considering the minority. But it's going to be, the schooling's broken down based on where you live.
Right. I see what you're saying. But the point is that after fucking World War II, the baby boom started, and that's where all that other 10% came from. In terms of the rest of like everyone was having babies, but consequently that made the population. Also, another thing is worth mentioning, prior to the Great Society, like ruining the Black family, basically, they were doing they're kicking ass, like between World War II and the 60s.
Well, Boston had a lot of millwork still too. So prior to the shift in that, and which led to a lot of unemployment when all those mills closed,
right,
both in the white and the black community, specifically like Southie a lot of those people were out of work,
right,
like a good majority. They had some of the highest overdoses in their communities too. And just like in Roxbury, they had some of the highest fatalities from guns.
I believe it.
This
is Whitey Bulger times, dude.
Yeah, but they could have, been friendly about it, because it's like they had a lot in common, like little shitty neighborhood they grew up in. They're killing each other.
That's really adorable. That's really adorable, Gabe. You should also introduce a line of unicorns.
Thinking about it.
Anyway,
the school committee is basically what I'm going to say is that everything's left up to the school committee, which for the most part,
I mean, again, those are the people that you vote. That is who they're voted in, the school committee.
For the most part, I think the one in charge is actually someone from Southie. And
the lady, yeah, well, that's that lady's name.
I forget her name.
I have it here.
I believe
it is Louise Day Hicks.
Oh, that chick. Yes. Oh, John Carrigan is the school committee chair. He was the head.
Right.
He was very for it. My mom was saying the mayor was Kevin White, and they said that she was saying they called him Kevin Black at the time. He was very pro.
That's pretty funny.
He was very pro busing.
Yeah. That's also funny too, is that we'll get to it later, but yeah, I'll fuck it. I'll get to it later.
Basically what I want to say is a lot of these decisions about the school integration and all that stuff was left up to the school committee, which they chose to do nothing from like when it was brought up in 60s.
Well, it was unpopular too.
I understand.
Yeah.
It was brought up in the 60s. They chose to do nothing, which it basically had to go to a court case.
Right. Well, I was just about to get into that. Yeah. So what happened was basically a bunch of the NAACP got their fucking. Let's just before we go anywhere else. Who started the NAACP?
I don't know, Scott. Who started it?
Some of my relatives. Anyway, what's it called? But anyway, so the NAACP basically, like I said before, they're like Al Sharpton. They're going around the country trying to find court cases to make their bones on, and
like ambulance chasing, but with racism cases.
Right, exactly. But basically, there was a test case down in Charlotte, South Carolina, and it was basically successfully implemented. Partially due to the fact that basically what happened was they implemented busing and essentially they also accommodated for a bunch more private schools to enter the market, so it didn't really become a problem in Charlotte. So it ended up working, and it actually was 2 years before they started here. And so 2 years after that happened, the NAACP came here and started a class action lawsuit with 44 children and 14 Black parents. This is the thing that fucking it wigs me out. They invoked the 14th Amendment in the argument in court that racially busing people, I guess.
What's the 14th Amendment?
14th Amendment. It's the
freeing the slaves.
That's 13th.
Okay.
So 14th Amendment is the one being like anyone who used to be a slave has full rights protected to you to everyone else.
Okay, so it's marking them as free people.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing that wigs me out about it is it's like how does literally uprooting a bunch of people and moving them around the city in some weird racial revenge plan constitute a constitutional right?
Yeah.
The thing that I understood from this was the judge that ruled on this case kind of wanted to leave it up to the school committee, but they decided not to push what he said to do, which was the busing.
Right.
Which I guess they'd already started to do that as a stopgap. When they didn't, when they weren't doing anything from the 60s, there was something like, let me see here. I got it in my notes. The Metropolitan Council for Education and Opportunity starts in 1966 as a temporary measure to take 250 Black kids from Boston to 7 suburban communities. So they were already doing this, but it wasn't forced. It was like
Right.
these they signed their kids up for it, basically.
Okay. So it's like a lottery system in order to get into a school in the suburbs.
I'm not exactly sure how it worked, but basically, the understanding I had is they signed their kids up because they wanted their kids to get better schooling.
Okay.
So it's not forced.
Okay, so it wasn't as just a system-wide rearrange, is what you're saying.
No.
Okay. Well, then enter this guy who was what the fuck was his name? W. Arthur Garrity Jr.
That's the judge, right?
Yeah, and also, by the way, he was appointed by a noted villain and murderer of John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yes, but he's a federal judge basically, and he was not elected in any way. He was placed there by the executive branch, which is again another one of the things that I keep hearkening back to, which is the fact that this was not something that people who lived here wanted. This was a top-down approach where the federal government was making busing happen in Boston, whether they wanted it or not. And they implemented it to start in 1974. And it started. Okay, here we go. Of the 100,000 enrolled in Boston school districts, okay, no, this was the impact. My bad. I'm a fucking idiot. But anyway, basically, what happened is they started with a couple specific schools, which was South Boston High, and specifically Roxbury High. They basically decided to swap those two fucking
poor blacks with the poor whites, see what happens.
Right, which is why it just screams to me that this was just some sick revenge plan. Because if they really wanted to like make, I don't fucking know. If these fucking rich liberals wanted to make a difference in black people's lives, they should have been like, fine, come to our schools.
There was people protesting of Judge Garrity after he made the ruling, saying, "Why don't you bust them to Wellesley?" Which is where he's from.
Yeah.
And I guess Whitey Bulger was responsible for firebombing a school in Wellesley. So some of those kids did actually have to get bused to another school while they, fixed up the school. There was like little spats in there of the what's the gang? The white something.
Winter Hill gang.
Yeah,
Winter Hill gang. There's little spurts of them stirring the pot.
Okay. I would imagine that Whitey Bulger was not for busing.
Yeah.
No, I think
it's a pretty safe bet.
Probably more for starting shit in the long run.
Right. I know, but I mean, just in terms of if you asked him what.
Well, they were probably grateful that the cops had to be other places in order they couldn't watch them all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
Probably helped out business.
Yeah, I actually saw a stat that the initial reaction to this busing thing was so insane that they immediately, the first year that they did it, they spent an extra $20 million in fucking state police funding in order to put police at every school that they were doing this fucking stupid plan on.
I don't remember what school, but they said something like 500 state troopers.
It had to be South Boston High.
It was either Southie or Roxbury. Those are the two hot spots.
Can you imagine 500 staties being in a fucking school?
It is. It's fucking bananas.
Because like we went to school, we had like juvenile officers, but
we had like 4 security guards, and that was like, oh shit, you got to watch out for them. Imagine having 500 stadies there.
Yeah, they had riot. My dad said that first day that he went to school, even at his school, which had nothing to do with the busing, they had fucking riot police out front of.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, but what was the other thing I was say? So then shit really starts going fucking bananas. Oh yeah, but the other thing, that $20 million. I earlier today I was curious as to what that would be today's money. It's $105 million taxed right onto the fucking budget.
Shit.
Yeah. Can you, so just in terms, so the fact that they have to spend so much to pull this fucking plan off, obviously the schools are going to suffer anyway. So that's why it became insane that they were pursuing this fucking.
Well, this is when during the 70s when a lot of the budget cuts and stuff for the schools started happening too.
Sure. I mean, there was an economic recession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this specific case that we're talking about is Morgan versus Hennigan.
Yeah,
which happened in 72.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we're kind of past that anyway, so don't worry about it. But we should mention that some of the stuff that happened, the greatest hits of the stuff that happened in the wake of the thing. Well, first of all, like kids, basically just a lot of kids were white kids anyway, they were going to be bussed. They basically just didn't show up to school on the first day. And there were these moms who would have to go to court over and over again to fight truancy charges on themselves because they wouldn't send their kid to school.
Yep. Yeah, my Nana was one. She wouldn't send my mom or any of them to school.
Yeah, they did the fucking right thing to move.
Yeah, and then by 76, by the end, that's when they'd moved to Quincy.
Right.
Yeah, and my mom was saying too, even when they moved to Quincy, because they had moved from Boston, they had like truancy officers at the house all the time to make sure that they actually lived in Quincy and weren't just lying and saying they did, you know what I mean, at this address so they could go to Quincy schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. There's the fucking government again being like, oh, we need to make sure you take this medicine, and we're going to make sure we're going to issue fines. We're going to make life unlivable for you if you don't fucking comply.
Yeah.
We're going to show up at your house, no fucking warrant. Well, some fucking flimsy truancy warrant.
You finally flee like where the shit's popping off, and they're still coming, 5 miles.
Literal agents of the state.
Yeah, truancy agents. Are you sure you live here? All right. Yeah, but she said it was nonstop for a while.
So another thing that happened was in the first few weeks of white kids going to school, of black kids going to school at Southie High. This is the thing I was going to say that was an ironic name twist, but a white student was stabbed by a black student named James White.
Running back for the Pats.
Yeah. maybe it was him now. No, I think it was a little bit too late. But
it's his father.
His dad just died too. I wonder if that was him.
But
yeah, dude, this was brutal. Did you see the one white kid? I think he went to Roxbury and 3 black teenagers held him down and caved his skull in with paper.
Yeah, it wasn't even a teenager, dude. It was a fucking just white guy driving through who was an auto mechanic.
Oh, you're right.
They used a fucking cinder block on his head. It was basically LA riots way before, back when that shit happened so much that it wasn't a national story.
Before Reginald
Say
Denny.
his name. Say his name.
I can't believe he survived that, dude.
He barely, dude. You ever see him talk afterwards?
No,
he didn't. He did not survive it.
We did an episode on that too.
We did do an episode on that one. That was a good episode.
So let's keep the record straight. We only talk about racist riots and welders that go crazy and destroy their whole town.
That's you, buddy. I talk about all manners of things.
Killdozer? That guy fucking ruled.
Gabe was on the Killdozer episode.
I was brought in as expertise because I'm a welder.
Anyway, so that was one of the things that happened. Yeah. So the thing with the guy, the black kid stabbed the white kid in the school, though, like basically the whole neighborhood erupted into a fucking melee. And all of the parents of the white kids like stormed the school and wouldn't let any of the black kids out at all. They had to have, they ate the cost of several buses to be able to sneak decoy buses off with no kids in them because they knew that the people would just fucking destroy the bus.
Yeah, they put buses on the side door of the school and then took the kids out in those ones while they had decoy buses out front. It's pretty crazy stuff. I mean,
and who pays for that at the end of the day? Too, by the way, the neighborhood that was fucking, it was imposed on.
I mean, let's get this straight too. It was bad on both sides. These kids were going to school. The black kids were going to school.
Are you trying to say that there are good people on both sides?
These black kids are going to schools that they don't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah.
While people's parents are outside with bananas and watermelons and making like.
Hey, maybe they thought they wanted a snack.
Yeah.
And they didn't know. They don't know any black people. That's what they assumed they ate. No, but what's it called? I do get what you're saying, Gabe. I completely agree, and that's why I think it's sick that these poor black kids who they didn't do nothing. They're trying to go to school. They
didn't do nothing, dude.
Yeah, and they basically were victims of this fucking stupid social engineering experiment.
Yeah.
That's all it is, because it's like, what is the goal other than that? Just like
revenge.
Hey, fuck it and see what happens, you know?
Well, they were just trying to force people to live together that didn't necessarily want to live together. Because we don't have, it's not like Boston is forced ghettos. People like to be with their own kind. Yeah. That's just kind of how it was.
Still is to a very large degree.
Still is.
Yeah.
So it's nobody won. Even the politicians that put all this together didn't. Well, they probably still won.
No, they still won, dude.
Still won. No, they definitely still won. They always
won. But yeah, so after that stabbing happened, this was the first high school in the country to install a metal detector. South Boston High. Yeah,
I heard about that, and I was thinking about how giant were those fucking things in the 60s?
It had to have been an entire room. Still.
Yeah.
Gigantic.
But what's it called? What else happened? Oh yeah, let's not forget about the fucking soiling of Old Glory.
Oh, shout out the t-shirt I'm wearing.
Oh, he's wearing it right now. Nice.
Yep. I brought it on. There's I won a Pulitzer Prize, dude.
Yeah, for that
the
photo.
Soiling of Old Glory. Get that at skimaskcollective.com, that t-shirt.
Also, good title.
Yeah, what a great picture.
That helps.
What's that?
The title helps the fucking the Pulitzer Prize, perhaps.
Pulitzer, yeah. Great title.
For the good old Boston Herald, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Now owned by fucking Rupert Murdoch.
I mean, that's when it really.
That's unfortunate.
It really came to a spearhead. The gentleman that's about to be.
No pun intended, I hope.
No, the gentleman that's
about to be. You said
spearhead.
Pal.
I know. Well, it's the whole thing. It's because.
Shame on that. Come on, that was a William joke.
The people that were on the side, the white people that were on the side against the busing, were basically saying like it wasn't a racist thing, that they didn't want their kids to be.
Oh, this was very clearly a racial attack.
When you see that picture, you're like, all right, it's fucking racist.
Yeah.
Forget the picture, forget the optics, because optics can be deceiving, but. That guy had nothing to do with it.
Oh, that guy?
That guy had jack and shit to do with any of it.
He was going to town hall or something for something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
I think it was a town hall or something.
No, it's City Hall.
City Hall.
It was City Hall. Yeah, that's where it was.
That's right around the corner from where I work, actually. It's funny.
The picture, you can tell exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the background of it.
That's an upstanding citizen, probably a business owner, and about to be impaled by a gentleman.
No, he's not. He was a law professor. He was doing some sort of official capacity for the city, but had nothing to do with busing.
He got a sick career out of it, though.
Yeah,
he ended up.
He got to be the guy.
Yeah, he worked for Dukakis. He worked for a lot of mayors in like some kind of official capacity for like civil rights and shit after that.
Yeah,
but the guy, what's the guy's name? Fucking Joseph Rakes is the kid. Who's allegedly spearing him. He's 17. He's from South Boston. He said at the time, he was like, looking back, he was just a dumb kid who was pissed he couldn't go to school with his friends. Basically, they would say, half your friends have to go here and the rest of you stay. And everyone was like, fuck that. But he's actually not trying to spear him. He's about to hit him in the face with it, like a side swipe. It's just the way they caught the picture, because I looked into it more. And even the guy who got attacked, Theodore Landsmark, he said that the guy wasn't trying to spear him. So they basically knocked him down. They broke his nose. And then the guy who looks like he's holding him, doesn't it look like he's holding him to get speared? It does,
yeah. I thought they were basically lining him up for a fucking double execution.
See how deceiving a picture can be, though? All parties involved. The guy holding him is actually picking him up to help him after getting his nose broken on the ground. And then the kid's not spearing him. He's looking to like swipe him in the face.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny how like these crazy pictures, you can tell like a whole story that's like not even, I mean, it's close to true, but deceiving for sure when you look at it, and that dude Joseph Rakes, actually, he caught a case for I think he beat his sister's boyfriend to death like in the 80s, like a decade later, and then they suspended the sentence and he avoided like all jail time for it somehow. I was reading into this guy a little bit.
Interesting.
Very weird. Yeah, very weird.
Wow. So, but that's a fucking sick photo, though. I gotta concede.
Iconic, dude.
Yeah.
I think we wanted to use it for an album cover for a while, except we were going to Photoshop your head onto the black dude.
Oh, that's a funny idea.
We thought about it a long time ago.
Yeah. I'd have to do the full blackface, though.
Oh, God. I don't know if they're
Minstrel show blackface.
Yeah. Well, Kumia did it on this fucking album cover.
Yeah. Sure.
Fuck. Anyway, what else happened that was fucking insane? Yeah, so that guy, so we didn't even finish talking about the guy who got his head kicked, the fucking Reginald Denny dude. He that says, okay, he was in a retaliatory incident. Okay, 2 weeks later, this is after the soiling of Old Glory. So good segue. In a retaliatory attack, Black teenagers in Roxbury threw rocks at auto mechanic Richard Polite's car and caused him to crash. They dragged him out of his car and crushed his skull with nearby paving stones.
Christ,
when police arrived, the man was surrounded by a crowd of 100 chanting, "Let him die, let him die," while lying in a coma from which he never recovered.
Yeah, I think he died something like a week later.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
They had to, I was reading, and they actually had police squads, specifically the motorcycle cops, that they would have as like
also, by the way, those
squads.
Are clearly the coolest and most down to earth and not dickheaded cops, by the way. The motorcycle.
Are you being serious?
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay, they could get around the city the fastest. So they had like stoning squad, like cops, so that this didn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Stoning squads.
Or they call them something crazy like that. All
That's
this
basically
is like,
what it is.
Bottle kids.
Basically, there was Mad Max on the streets.
Yeah, it was for a long
dude.
It lasted up for like 2 fucking years too.
Yeah, 3 years pretty much.
Yeah.
It didn't come to. My mom said the worst thing she saw was a black kid in her neighborhood in Dorchester. Like a crowd of white kids grabbed him and broke both his legs with pipes.
Oh.
She said that was the worst thing she saw in person.
And I'm sure.
But it was like you said. It was a war zone. Yeah, no, it just went both ways. If you're a white kid walking in it was just, that's how bad it was, man.
But yeah,
people just getting fucked up.
Yeah, dude, I was watching a 1976 piece in CBS like national news about it. And it's so interesting. The thing that fucking really stuck with me was that basically, so one of the things they said was they mentioned that busing this was an election year, 1976. It was the year Jimmy Carter won. And they mentioned that out of all the top topics for what they were voting for in the election, busing was like second to last at like 39. And
no shit, no one wanted it or cared about it unless it was affecting them,
Right, that's a good point. But the other thing that I thought was interesting though was that the number one and number two topics that voters were concerned about, were inflation and federal spending. So I thought that's
what did this cost?
No. Well, that's not my point, is that's what people cared about at the time. This is before that sexy race stories are in the news all the time. Back then it was just fucking, people knew how it was. It was still the fucking 70s, for Christ's sake.
No, I'm just saying it's funny because they didn't care about this until it was a problem, and then it made those things worse.
That's true. It did make things worse. But not just that, but my point is though people, I'm not for nothing, like inflation and fucking federal spending are two very important topics that people now literally don't ever talk about.
Yeah.
And all they talk about is fucking stupid, sexy race stories.
Yep. I agree. That's really what matters. Is like, where's my money going and how much is it worth? Not fucking.
And how badly have they devalued it this year?
I think a big part of this story too is everybody passing the buck because nobody wanted to touch the issue.
Yeah.
Like from the governor down.
The judge, the school committee, all of them were kind of like, people are not involved had big opinions, but the ones making the decisions kind of just passed it around.
Right. Well, because that's the thing. It didn't matter if it was all fucked up. They were doing the thing that they were told to do. And in government, you fucking fail upwards. It doesn't matter if you do the job well. It's that you did the thing that they told you to do, regardless of what the consequences are.
There was a bunch of politicians that actually ran on that they would stop busing.
Yeah,
obviously,
and they won.
None of them did it.
Yes.
And then as soon as all this was, in hindsight, all those people lost their jobs.
True.
Because that's what they ran on. But obviously they weren't going to do shit.
Yeah. They never intended to. That's not the point of getting into office. It's to change things fix them.
It's all the promises you make along the way that you definitely won't do.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should talk a little bit about ROAR, which is the Restore Our Alienated Rights, which was we mentioned her before, that Hill lady, or whatever the fuck her name is.
Louise Day Hicks.
Yeah, Louise Day Hicks. She was basically it was her baby, essentially. And she was actually, interestingly, her kids weren't affected by busing, by the way.
She was just really down for the cause.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah. Did you say my mom said everyone loved that lady?
I said it, yeah. It's Restore Our Alienated Rights. And it was, dude, it got kind of big. Like, there were like multiple thousand people marches. They basically used civil rights tactics, which is interesting. Like, literally, they were using fucking Saul Alinsky fucking rules for radical shit, like going and doing a peaceful protest, a sit-in, and all that shit. And it got a lot of heads turning. But by the time anything, like Gabe said, basically nobody did anything. And it dissolved out of a lack of need.
And like any other peaceful protest, then you had hoodlums that would go and fucking like destroy stuff and firebomb stuff. So it completely didn't even matter if they did do a peaceful protest, because all that people would see would be the violence.
True.
So even if they had a message that was,
those are fucking agent provocateurs, dude.
I mean, it happened. You had all these people that were out of work in fucking Southie, so they had nothing better to do.
I suppose. If you felt pretty strongly about it, why? Well, all right. I'm about to say something I regret. Anyway,
that group actually got split into two different organizations.
Yeah, I saw that too. Basically, it seemed like it was an organization started and conducted mostly by women, and as such, obviously, it splintered into factions because two big personality women were butting heads.
One of them's name was Elvira, and she like got kicked out of the group because she was like, she was making too much of a ruckus or some shit.
I didn't read that anecdote.
It was basically like she was too disruptive, so they kicked her out of the group, and she's like, I'm gonna make my own group.
I thought you were talking. I thought that was Pixie Palladino.
Yeah, but I think she made her own ROAR.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying. Of course, women can't keep anything together for too long.
There was because they're women. There, I remember that.
Okay, fine. You would remember that, you fucking weirdo. But yeah, no. But like I said, any organization that is run by women is inevitably going to break into pieces when they get in their period.
Yeah, it's doomed for failure. At some point.
So, but yeah, they did a lot, and they actually organized a 1,200 person march on Washington, D.C.
They actually sang during one of their protests, "We shall overcome."
Based.
While being seemingly racist against Black people.
All right. So, I mean, we're coming up on it, actually. But, what else? What's the other stuff that we should get to that were like big events that happened?
Well, while we're on the topic of protests, they went to a reenactment, I believe 400 strong. They went to a reenactment of the Boston Massacre, and when the shots were fired at the reenactment, they all fell, and they were like, "Oh, it's because of Judge Garrity. It's the one that fired these shots. We're dying in the streets."
That's a little aggressive.
That's dramatic.
So is our freedoms and liberties.
Obviously, again, we mentioned that this organization was run by women. So of course, the most dramatic way to express your fucking point is utilized. I guess I'll just die then.
Die in the streets.
Fuck. Oh yeah, so it's also worth mentioning that the baby boom ended around this time. So that's also part of why this demographic change that was already happening kind of didn't matter. I mean, it ended up making the whole thing a non-issue because, first of all, like you said, like we said many times, most of the white people who had a problem with it left. And those out of those white people there and in the suburbs, all of them had less kids in the next generation.
Yep.
But the funny thing about it is they never fixed anything. They just
up
and left.
It changed the entire city forever too. Literally, this one 3-year event. It was like you said, the end of the baby boom era, and then white flight happened right bang right after each other. And it says it dropped by the 80s. It was the school district of Boston was down from 100,000 to 57,000 students.
Holy shit!
Only 15% of whom were white. So a decade later, at half the amount of kids, because
that's 43% loss.
Yeah. Yes, it went in half and then dropped to 15% white for the whole city.
Wow.
So everybody left. And then that's still how it is to this day. Even less. I think Gabe said it was like 8% or something now, white kids in the city. Going to public schools, at least.
Yeah. They're actually still in jeopardy too, because public schools are going to go the wayside because of charter schooling.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other topic.
I think they'll still be at least like one high school. They might not have like multiple high schools in cities and shit like that.
Yeah. Well, there's just going to be less kids in all populations, so it's not really
I was going to say,
issue.
The generation after this one had even less kids.
Yeah.
Than the one previous, and I think it's still trending that way.
Yeah, smartening up.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be great, Gabe.
What a depopulation for the world.
Yeah, Gabe. Yeah, look at Gabe's profile. By the way, he's possibly more fucking Semitic than me.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. He could pass for sure.
Yeah,
they didn't get us during the Inquisitions,
Yeah, he was one of the turncoats on the other yids.
One of the Moors.
No, the other thing I wanted to talk about was something that me and William talk about on the show a lot is William is the one who I don't know if he coined this, but he's the first person I've heard to say it, but he said that Americans they don't care, not unlike him or not him specifically, but like England and people in Europe, we don't care about place. You know what I mean?
Meaning where we're from.
Like, yeah, it's not as important to us, partially because we did come here from all around the world.
That's not true at all.
I disagree with him wholeheartedly about where we grew up.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's
a huge part.
We're a very tribal, specifically like Boston is a very
That's
tribal
what I'm saying.
place.
Right,
Other parts of the country, yes, I agree with him. Like the
Yeah.
Arizonas and Californias and Floridas, like the kind of transplanty type states too. People don't really give a fuck.
But what I'm trying to say though is that this effort to basically shake out all the white people from Boston was a major blow to the place identity of all the people that lived there. And it robbed a lot of people from, like, dude, I remember even when I was in high school, my dad was like, I never wanted you to have to be a suburbs kid. And,
really?
he mourned the fact that there's nowhere in the fucking city for us to live that I would have been able to go to school and not get the shit beat out of me,
Yeah.
And
it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. He grew up. Yeah. Well, I guess Brighton is all fucking college people now. But
they definitely have tribalism over there, dude. Think of the soccer hooligans.
No. That's what I'm saying. They're all they care about is their fucking.
You were saying? I thought you were saying they didn't have any.
No. He said that Americans have a lack of it. But I was saying though that specifically this, like I saw it in that 76 documentary I watched from CBS, which is actually pretty fair and balanced. And maybe I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute, but. They had an interview with this guy who was on the school board from Charlestown, and he was like, he was walking down the street with the anchor going like, yeah, this is my fucking house right here. My mother-in-law lives next door. My sister lives upstairs. And it's like, they obviously left.
Yeah.
Like they probably left. And he says, if you go around the neighborhood, all you see is more of this with where our family all lived together like this. And basically this was a big government psyop to fucking just end all those roots.
Yeah. to any kind of like not nationalism, but I don't know what's
Yeah,
the word for
your
cityism, sense of
local
pride.
your local identity.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they can buy up all the housing and then jack up the prices.
Oh, I'm sure they were doing really well in the 70s. Those Irish second generation Irish people.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Angela's
meant-
Ashes, fucking era Irish people.
Yeah.
I meant the people that were getting them out.
Oh yeah. Well,
That's what they were doing.
that is what they were doing. Yes.
No,
you're
and then
not
it
wrong.
were right after that. All those neighborhoods, Dorchester, Southie, gentrified, very expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's exactly what happened.
Dude,
the black neighborhoods just stayed black.
Right.
That
And
they
some of them
didn't change at all.
expanded because there was
Yeah.
more black people. But yeah, we talked about this on the old podcast. Remember I told you about that scheme? People got bagged for this. These real estate guys, they faked fucking like vandalism in order to get white flight to happen in get the Jews to move out of Mattapan.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Definitely easy to scare the Jews out of Mattapan.
Well, these were Jews
Probably
doing
didn't
it
take
though.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was like
Oh,
back
so they
when,
knew their own kryptonite, dude.
yeah, the Schwarzy's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
No, what's it called? No, but seriously, they got bagged for this. Basically, is they saw that Mattapan would be a good place to put, because there was going to be they had it pre-worked out with the city that they were going to put projects there, but they saw a problem with that was that there was a bunch of Jews still living there, because going back to like the 30s and 40s, that's where all the Jews lived, is Mattapan.
Yeah. They already had it worked out because they were like, Murder Pan's such a good nickname, like we can't not use it.
Yes, they presaged the gangster rap trend of the 1990s.
Yeah, sure.
No, but and they had a deal. These were real estate guys to set up the projects in Mattapan, and they did some false flag vandalism on a bunch of Jewish neighborhood on their own people to get them to leave. And so they were able to buy up all the property and make it into projects and make a shitload of money. And that's why Mattapan is Murder Pan.
Well, it worked. Another
It did
Jewish
work.
plan worked to perfection, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mattapan is still a complete shithole.
Yeah, they get those Simcoe hot dogs though, dude. Fucking Kennedy fried chicken, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, Mattapan's terrible. Roxbury, those two, one of those two is the worst for sure.
Yeah. I think Roxbury's getting a little mad. I was gonna say it's on the
It's not. I lived in West Roxbury, aka White Roxbury, for 4 years, and it's on the border. It's terrible, dude.
Oh fuck! I knew this guy who lived at that that trailer park that's right at the where you can get on the expressway on the Parkway.
What, on the Legion?
Yes.
Yes, I know exactly.
I knew a guy who lived there, and yeah.
What a place for a trailer park. That's the only one. You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
see those out here. They're everywhere if you go out west of the Midwest.
Oh, I know, yeah.
But they're really, I guess there's some maybe in like Nantasket or something, kind of like those weird, like.
There's a
beachy
surprising
towns.
amount on the South Shore.
Yeah, like, but places you wouldn't
drive
expect.
through Raynham,
Easton, Raynham, yeah, that kind of fucking shit.
down near the dog.
Now we're starting to get towny. We should call it
now
here.
it's real inside baseball. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are like, where the fuck is Raynham? Dude? Yeah.
Where do you guys go to get your pizza, your bar pizzas, or your roast beef sandwiches up there, up in the North Shore?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, I guess that's a good place to leave it. I had a good time, guys. Thanks for joining me for this.
Me too, brother. Thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope you'll come back again.
For sure, anytime, man. I was gonna see if you and William wanted to come on my show sometime.
We'll be on soon.
Rhodes pill, dude.
Oh yeah, dude. We gotta lay it all out, dude. I'm reading the
Carol whatever book.
Yeah, Carol Quigley. The preeminent
Quigley.
text on it. So we'll have to do that soon. Anyway, so Paul, what would you like to plug?
Listen to my podcast, Offensive. It's listen wherever you can get them, and then the YouTube Ski Mask Media on YouTube, and then twitch.tv/Paul Fenz and at Paul_Fenz on Twitter. That's it,
Awesome.
brother.
And Gabe, this is the first time you can plug your new podcast where it's actually out.
Yeah, that's true. We were recording it at the time, but now we just have a back catalog we've been releasing. So you can catch me on my podcast, Shit's About to Get Spooky. It's anchor.fm/ SAG, the number 2 S. And you can catch me on Instagram, Cheap Guitars, Cheap Thrills. And then we have a podcast one too. You could probably figure it out. It's probably the same thing. I don't remember. I didn't set it up.
Okay. And you can get all our links at www.historyhomos.com. You can check out our YouTube channel. It's in the bio of all of our social media, which is at History Homos Pod across social media. And you can follow me on Instagram at Scott Lizard Abrams. And William's not here to say it, so be gay to yourselves and each other. Later, homos. Let me just quickly stop.